Hi everybody, welcome back. This is Knowing Yourself Better Than the Devil, Part 3. If you have not listened to the first two set of classes, you can find them on youtube.com/chazak. Just Google the playlist, Knowing Yourself Better Than the Devil. It's there. You'll find it. Definitely worth listening to it. If anyone wants any of the source sheets for any of the classes at any point, please let me know. You can email me at Reuven@wearechazak.com. I'm happy to send it over to you. Part of this the series, this mini-series, is really to help us prepare for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We are less than a week away. We're 5 days away from one of the most awesomest days of the year. And it's so easy to show up on Rosh Hashanah without any preparation. It's not like Pesach, where you spent all this time cleaning out your house, chametz, and like there's a physical process that forces you to get into the zone of getting ready for the holiday. In Rosh Hashanah, you can literally just show up, and all you're doing is cooking to make a nice meal, but you really haven't done the inner work of thinking about, that inner avodah, the pnimiyut, the inner work of becoming something more. It doesn't happen by just showing up. If you just show up in Rosh Hashanah, open the Machzor, you'll have a nice experience, but you've missed out on the opportunity to really take control of your narrative. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. So let's just take a step back for a minute. So the number one is we said that we don't believe in the devil, right? There are no devils in Judaism. We do believe that there's something called a Yetzer Hara and a Yetzer Tov. And the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is not an evil inclination until you choose to use that inclination in a negative kind of way. There's only bechira, there's only choice. And your choice will determine if the action is positive or negative. A very easy work around this is as follows. This is actually a true story. It happened to me last Monday night. One of the young professionals comes up to me, Rabbi, and says, "What should I do? I'm supposed to go to Dubai for, this is a young guy. He's like, I have to go to Dubai, but I'm just too lazy. I don't want to go. It's for a business, and I could just, I get away with not going. What should I do?" So I told him my general rule of thumb is that whenever you're faced with a choice, and you have a choice between doing something that is difficult versus doing something that is easy, the difficult choice is, generally speaking, the right choice. If you have two choices to make, and one is difficult and one is easy, generally speaking, the more difficult choice is the right choice. So either going to Dubai versus staying here or not going. So he tells me last night, he's like, "Rabbi, I want you to know, after I spoke with you, I booked my ticket. The next night I was on a flight, I went to Dubai. And I want to thank you so much. It was the best decision I ever made. I met all these people, I made contacts, my business did it. It was amazing. Thank you so much. You were so right about that idea." And it's always true. You have two choices. What should I do? Should I get out of bed or should I stay in bed a little bit longer? What do you think is the right choice? So, right? Should I go to the class or should I go to the class? Should I open the book or not? Should I reach? It's always those two choices. And we always choose to do what is more easy and comfortable versus what is difficult. And therefore, I'd like to believe, and there are circumstances where staying in bed is healthier, by the way, where you've worked too hard and you need a break and you're overdoing it. There are times where the easier choice is also. The Yetzer Hara, that negative force, gets two ways. Either he pulls you back, don't do anything. Just chill, relax, pamper yourself, make it easy, don't work so hard. Or keep working until you crash. Your job is to figure out that golden place in the middle, finding that place of balance. That's ultimately that we want. And everything in Judaism is about balance. Be balanced. Right? That's right. The Shvil HaZahav, as the Maimonides says it, that golden means, that golden path, that place of balance. That's what we want. Okay. So, therefore, what is Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah is a time of the year where we celebrate the birth of man. And therefore, when we are approaching Rosh Hashanah, we are approaching the potential of man re-expressing itself. And even though it's true that you and I were not born on Rosh Hashanah, maybe you were, but if you weren't, that's okay, because just know that is the waypoint, the flag point of where all of human potential is expressed. And this is what the Chachamim say, that this is the day of Din, the day of judgment, where your choices will determine what the year looks like, right? Your choices will determine if you're written in the book of life or the book of death, the book of growth or the book of no growth. Your choices, that's all it is. And when it comes to our choices, we struggle because we have this thing called an identity. And well, my identity is so much of who I was yesterday and the day before and the year before and the years before. And that's a mistake. That's not who you are. That's who you were. Who you are is what you choose right now. not what you did. Where you want to go is more important than where you were. I don't care what you did before. I don't care what you didn't do before. I only care about where you're going. I can't change what was. I can only choose to change where I want to be going. That is your choice. The first step of knowing yourself better than the devil is having a clear vision. We'll speak about this more a little bit later in the class. But I want to begin with this quote from Viktor Frankl, okay? Because I think this is very much tied into Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and the Yesed Timei Teshuvah in general. He says as follows. He says, this is a fascinating quote. If you have not read Man's Search for Meaning, shame on you. You all have to read it. It's a fascinating book. It will forever change your lives. Okay? When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Think about that for a minute. You're in a situation. Nothing's changing around you. You're frustrated by it. What do? Change yourself. It's inner avodah, inner work. You need to adapt within yourselves. This is a deep truth. This is such a powerfully Jewish concept. And I would say more than that. Every situation is really an opportunity to examine ourselves and ask ourselves, are we ready, able, meant to be at this particular station in life? Have we changed ourselves enough to be able to deal with the situation that we find ourselves in right now? That's all it is. And by the way, how often do we find ourselves in a situation which was set up and you should have prepared for it and you didn't? You're like, oh man, I can't believe I'm here. I wish I would have taken that time beforehand to prepare myself at this particular moment in life, and I blew it. Taking advantage. God, you're on a path. God's driving us somewhere. And all you're doing on this pathway, on this road of life, is choosing yes, no, right choices, wrong choices. That's all it is. So, what makes someone choosing correctly, and what I guess allows someone to choose incorrectly? How does that happen? No one here wants to do bad. Everyone here wants to do good. And I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and it's a hard idea to hear, but there is no such thing as just being good passively. The only way one can be good is by them being proactively being good. Just because you're not doing bad does not make you good. In order for you to be good, you have to be proactively working on being good. What does that mean? That can mean lots of things. Okay, and it doesn't have to only be religious things. So even though I would argue that character development is very much a religious thing. You know, for me, it's more important that we work on the pnimiut, the inner parts of our reality, versus the chitzoni, the outer parts of reality. So often I see young people, getting inspired by a religion and whatnot, and the first thing they do is they'll put on like a certain garb that helps them identify with a particular group that they want to be a part of, and that's the worst place to start. The most important place to start is the inner work. Are you going to be more kind, patient, understanding, loving, caring? Are you going to be someone who's really working and being thoughtful, being someone who's able to get up and volunteer their time to give back? That's the stuff that matters more to God than what we call the chitzoni, the externalities, the more superficial parts of Judaism. But Viktor Frankl is reminding us, this Holocaust survivor who saw so much tragedy, that the real circumstances we find ourselves in are meant to change us. Can't always change the situation around us. Sometimes we need to change ourselves. Right? And this is the question that Rosh Hashanah asks us. You went through another year. It's almost over. 5 days left of the new year. Okay? The year is going to come to an end. Now we look back at the year. Did the situation change or did we change? And the situation didn't change. Were we supposed to change? Did we allow ourselves to grow? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihaya b'dvaro. Oh, thank you. So this is a quote from the Ramaphal. The Ramaphal wrote an amazing book called Mesilat Yesharim. The Mesilat Yesharim is another one of those amazing books that everyone has to learn. It's not a book you read, it's a book you learn. He wrote this book when he was very young. I imagine he wrote in his early 20s. Like the book is called Mesilat Yesharim. In English, it's called The Path of the Just. Okay? The Path of the Just. There is a... he was very... Yeah. He died when he was 39. I could teach it, yeah. I could totally teach it. It's amazing. It's something that I go through every couple of years. I pick it up again, and I just like go through it again. I always find it deep and meaningful. Every self-help book is based on this particular book. It's a manuscript for all personal development. There's a art school translation called Mesilat Yesharim. This is excellent also. There's lots of translations. There's a Feldheim translation that goes through two different versions of the book that he wrote. He actually sold all of his books when he was very young because he had no money. He was poor. He was what? The Barry book is very popular, and more recently, yes, it's become very popular. He was someone who was rejected by most of the Jewish world when he was alive. He was people thought of him as being a mishachist, a young man teaching Kabbalah who was clean-shaven, wore a red cape, not the vision of what you'd think of a holy rabbi. He left Europe and moved to Israel with his wife and two kids, who all three died in a plague. Okay, he himself succumbed to the plague that was happening in Israel. He died in Tveria. He believed that he was a Gilgul, a reincarnation of Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva only became religious when he was 40, and he is buried right next door to him. Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto are buried right near each other. He asked to be buried right there because he saw himself a continuation of the Rabbi Akiva's work, and he died when he was 39. So there's a very deep parallelism between the two figures, but certainly a tragic story. Now, what's interesting about this is just like a fun fact. The manuscripts of the Ramaphal are around today, and you can see them in a museum in Moscow, okay, in Russia. The Ksav Yad, the actual handwritten book, Mesilat Yesharim and Derech Hashem, his two most famous works, were part of something called the Ginsburg Library, which the Soviets confiscated, because anything that had value the Soviets just took. And they happen to have taken and preserved this manuscripts of the Ramchal, and you can see them in Moscow, in the Moscow Museum. It's all there on public display, open for the public. Fascinating stuff. Okay, but some people say that he was the father of modern Hebrew, right? That he wrote poetry in Hebrew in the 1700s. He wrote plays. He was definitely a brilliant person, and someone who you'll see when you write. This is written by a 20-year-old. We're about to read this, okay? This is all the introduction to this little piece. A 20-year-old wrote this, but it's so profoundly deep. Most of the stuff he wrote as a teenager, and he didn't publish it until his early 20s. So he was a super genius of a kid. So this is what he writes. This is in his introduction. He says like this, and this is so deep. He's like, I did not write this book in order to teach people something new of which they had not been aware, but rather to remind them of that which they had already knew very well. In most of my words, you will not find anything other than observations about which most people have little doubt. However, it is precisely those concepts which are most evident that tend to be overlooked. And ironically, it is common for people to be oblivious to those ideas of whose truths is unchallenged. Therefore, since this book contains little new information, there is no advantage in reading it only once, because the reader will not gain any new knowledge. The advantage of this book can result only from repeated readings, because they may remind people of those things that tend to be forgotten, and a person can then set his heart to those obligations which one tends to overlook. This is true for all truths. We know what is true in our heart of hearts. Everyone here knows what they need to do. So then why don't we do it? Why don't we do the things that we know we're meant to be doing? And generally speaking, I would argue that it has to do with convenience and laziness. They somehow go together. Right? I'd rather not do something, or rather, most of us are part of what I call the Procrastinator Club, right? And we always meet tomorrow, right? We never get together now, but we don't want to push ourselves, so we forget. It's much easier not to remind ourselves of our failings, and to sweep it under the rug. I don't want to think about my failings, so we forget about it. But the nature of all work requires a level of repetition. Why do you need to say in tefillah, Asher hotzeiti otanu mibeit avedim hayinu l'mitzrayim paro? We constantly say, thank you, God, for taking us out of Egypt. Thank you for taking us out of the house of slavery. We could say it once a day. Say it once a year. Rosh Hashanah, we remember the new year once a year. Why can't we have it like once a year thing? Why is it done every single day, 3 times a day? And the answer is we need to remember, because we have short memories. And if we don't allow ourselves to work on feeling a sense of gratitude, okay, we won't feel gratitude. Gratitude is not a natural emotion that we feel. No one wants to feel indebted to anyone else. I'd rather not feel indebted to anybody. I don't want to feel hakarat tov to you. Then I owe you. I don't want to owe. But the Torah tells us that we work on this every single day to remind ourselves of this massive miracle because we will forget. And the same is true with truths that we know. Just because you know something does not mean that you live it. How many of you know what you should be doing but don't do it? So we ignore it. And therefore, the way to work around it is to find and put yourself into almost like a meditative process where you are doing chazara. I'm learning it over and over again, repeating it. You want to be a happy...
Oh, I like a bird. It's a high five.
It's a high five from Hashem. A bird just flew in, if you're wondering what just happened. The idea is like this. When you know that you're supposed to do something, right? It's so easy to ignore it. The only way to not ignore it is by creating a situation where you're constantly reviewing it over and over again. You need to bring that idea to the forefront of your mind, not the back of your mind. You want to be a good wife. You want to be a good husband. Everyone here wants to be good. No one wants to be a bad spouse. No one wants to be a bad friend. Everyone wants to do what's right. Everyone wants to do the good thing. I believe that at the core. I don't believe anyone wants to do anything bad. We have our self-interests at heart, which is important. You got to preserve yourself on some level, your ego, it's important, right? But not when it comes to you feeling like someone's taking advantage of you. I'm not willing to go ahead and be taken advantage of. And I understand that line, I get that. But what prevents us from pushing ourselves beyond the situation that we find ourselves in to become something better, more patient, more understanding? Where do we draw that line? And I want you to know, the people that are able to succeed in this way are successful because they're constantly going through the motions, repeating, I understand that I'm frustrated, I understand that this is hard, but I am going to push through because I want something more. And it doesn't work on one end. In a relationship, in any relationship, husband, wife, friend, whatever it is, child, both people have to want to play that game. The game of working hard at making something work. That's the only truth that exists. That anything that has meaning to it requires effort on two people's parts to make it work. It doesn't work with one person pushing. That could become abusive. That could become dangerous. But if two people are in a situation where they're both working towards building something, they will find beauty and depth and everything else. It doesn't happen with one person. Two people have to play the game, two to tango, always. But that means there has to be a desire on both their parts to push beyond their egos, beyond how they feel right now. And all too often, our emotions get in the way of doing what we're meant to be doing. Because I feel like I was wronged. They were mean to me. They weren't nice. I can do better than that. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I give up. How many people use those adjectives? Last night after my class, they came to me and said to me, Rabbi, I feel the same way about God and Rosh Hashanah. I give up. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I don't want to do it. I don't want to play the game. And I said to them, you're making a mistake. We're not here to judge about, whether or not we have enough or too much, too little. The only thing we're here to do is figure out if we are doing the best me that I can be doing. I can't control the results. I can't control whether or not marriage happens or children happen or success happens. Health, we can't control that. The only thing that you and I can control is our response to the situation that we are in. That's it. That's it. The devil gets you, metaphorically, by you buying into the most negative interpretation of your experience. That's how you get corrupted. But God hates me. I'm cursed. In the ayin hara, the evil eye, right? All the bad things. It's got to be everything else because I'm perfect, right? I am perfectly in a place doing everything that I should be doing. That's not true. No one's perfect. And the goal isn't to achieve perfection. The goal is to strive for perfection. Are we striving for a life of greatness and perfection? That's all God wants. You're not in control of what happens around you. I'm not in control if my wife decides to be mean. With all of my overtures of being kind, that's on her, not on me. So if we're in a healthy relationship, we can have that conversation and work through it. But we're human. We're all going to make mistakes. And that's why we have to be so compassionate. But you need to have a partner you're working with. Now, the partner that we work with all the time that we don't think about as our partner is ourselves. Right? The deepest, most personal part of who we are, the core of our essence and our being, that inner voice, that's your partner first. How are you reining in that identity of yours? That narrator in your mind? Who's in control? The circumstance, the emotion, or the intellect? You choose, because there's a dichotomy. There's a part of you that wants you to wake up in the morning and do great things. Another part of you says, don't do anything, go to sleep. Just chill, relax, you'll do it later. We spoke about the horse and the rider.
Later doesn't come sometimes.
What's that?
Doesn't come.
Doesn't. That's right, doesn't. But the idea is the same. Like, who's in control of who you are? And I'm telling you, this is the most powerful idea. You're in control. Forget about the situation. Forget about the circumstances that you find yourselves in. It's nonsense. That's the Yetzer, the Satan, trying to twist. Oh, it's evil. It's not fair. It's not this. There's no justice. Just do whatever you want. I can't tell you how many amazing people I've seen fall into this. Men and women.
But sometimes circumstances are beyond you.
Oh, that's right. They are always beyond. They're always beyond us. The only question is, how are you responding to it? It's not a punishment. Forget about. It's not fair. Other people have it different. That's where we get into trouble. The question is, how are you responding to the situation? Of course, there are some people are dealing with horrible things: the loss of a child, a painful death, financial loss, there's hardships. There's pain in the world, and I'm not saying it's not painful. All I'm saying is that I can't control the circumstances. I can only control how I'm going to respond in the circumstances. This is my lot, for better or for worse. This is what I have. These are my kids. Some of them, are amazing, and some of them are just a little okay. No, they're all amazing, But that's just the way it is. I can only control my response. Rosh Hashanah is asking us: did you make the right choices? Who's in control? Who's controlling the response? How did you allow this life that you had, this extra year you were given? What did you do with it? Because God wants one thing. He wants you to be, anyone know what God wants you to be? He wants you to be godly. To be godly means having the power to choose. You're not stuck. It's not true. The most powerful idea I can share with you is the power to choose to want to be something different. Don't think of the circumstances. The circumstances can't change. Only thing that can change is yourself. You can change in your circumstances. Holocaust survivors, at the end of the Holocaust, Viktor Frankl saw how there were two kinds of people. The people that right after the Holocaust, these are people that survived 4 years of Auschwitz. Hunger, starvation, abuse, survived. And they survived because they had something called hope. They were waiting for a loved one, a child, a family member. They were going to see them. And when they found out that hope was gone, the person died. Within 24 hours, 48 hours, the people died mysteriously. Dead. Right? People that survived were people that had this deep sense of hope. They had power. The ability to survive, to overcome nature was built on this powerful idea that I can overcome the situation because I have hope. I want to be with that person. When it was gone, mysteriously, 24 hours, they were gone, dead. And that's what the man's search for meaning is ultimately what he called this book. We're all looking for meaning, but I'm telling you, the most meaningful lives that we can have comes from our ability to choose. You look back at your pasts, the places where you get the most joy are the places where you made the best choices. The places in your past where you have the most pain and embarrassment come from the places where you made the poor choices. So what can we do to become individuals that are making better choices? Rosh Hashanah is asking that question first, before Yom Kippur. Before you can become forgiven, you have to have a vision as to where you want to go. Look at Rabbi Avram Torsky. This is also another book called Lights Along the Way, which is a commentary by Rabbi Torsky, the famous psychologist, on Mesiyat Yesharim. And he says as follows. Ramaphal calls attention to an important psychological principle. It is true that sometimes a person may behave improperly because of ignorance, but more often people do not have the knowledge that should deter them from doing wrong. Yet, this knowledge does not appear to impact upon their behavior. The phenomenon of being oblivious to that which one known is referred to as denial. Denial is not the same as lying, because lying is a conscious distortion of fact. The liar knows he is lying, whereas denial is an unconscious process in which a person is totally unaware that he is denying anything and is certain that he is in possession of the truth. The dynamic behind denial are clearly stated in the prophet Isaiah, who described the phenomenon several thousand years before Freud. The heart of this people is fattened. His ears are dull and his eyes are pasted, lest he understand with his heart, hear with his ears, and see with his eyes. Then he would repent and be healed. How powerful is that pasuk? The prophet is telling us that any person may refuse to become aware of what is obvious, because such awareness would necessitate his making changes to his behavior. And since making change is uncomfortable, his psychological mechanism allows him to maintain the status quo by rendering him oblivious to some aspect of reality. We are creatures of habit, and changing our ways is fraught with discomfort. To avoid the distress incident to change, our clever and conscious mind prevents our mind made being aware of those things which would lead to change. We ignore truths. It's uncomfortable. I don't want to deal with it.
So if we ignore truths,
Yes.
how can we make the right decision?
Excellent. That's what the next source is about. Rabbi Ephraim Becker, he wrote he has a website called musarpsych.org. I'm not sure if the site is there, but he breaks this into three very important parts. And I think this is the avodah leading into Rosh Hashanah. If you can do this, if you could spend some time after today, and I have like a little bit of a worksheet for you at the end of the sheet, things for you to think about and to contemplate, I promise you will have a different year. Stop trying to change chitzoni, the external situation. Work on the primi, the inner work. Ask yourself as follows. Number one, the 3 steps for growth have 3 moving parts: the real, the ideal, and the process. Okay, what is the real? The real is being intellectually honest about who you are and where you are right now. What are your strengths? What are your shortcomings? Who you are, what are you right now? Be honest. Get out a sheet of paper. This is me. I'm kind, loving, caring, lazy, or whatever, not lazy, or maybe I'm overly give. I don't create enough boundaries. Whatever you are, be clear about it on a sheet of paper. Write it down for you to read. Then, ask yourself the ideal. This is important. I really believe everyone has this. And if you don't have it, you are not alive. You're coasting. You're part of what I call the zombie apocalypse. People that are walking the earth but don't have vision. They are just doing what everyone else around them is doing. To be alive means to have a vision for your future. The ideal is a picture in your mind's eye of what the best version of you looks like. Don't ever give up on that. If you lose that, you become old. When you lose the storytelling, when you lose the dreaming, you have lost your youth. It's over for you. And never give up on that. I still dream. I still fight to make my dreams a reality. Never give up on that. It's not too late. If you let go a little bit, fine. Just grab it back, and it's just not too late to pull it back again. Do not ever give up on the dreams. Dreams can always come true. I'm not in control of the results. I can't force my dreams to become a reality. The only thing I can do is build myself, work on myself, so that reality can become my reality. The rest is up to Borei Olam. The rest is up to God, not me. The results are irrelevant. We're so used to X equals Z, right? X, Y, Z process. I do this, I should get that, and this is the outcome. Forget that for a minute. That's up to you. How many people start businesses, fail? Same businesses, billionaires. Both equally intelligent, equal family, equal everything. How does it work? I have no idea. Each person is given a challenge that they need to overcome. Have a guy, he's here, Rabbi, I lost $100 million. How did I do that? Why is God cursing me? I'm like, how do you know it's a curse? Maybe it's a beracha. And maybe you don't realize that the whole challenge of losing all that money is really to put you in a situation to ask yourself the most important questions. Who are you? Are you your money? Or are you something more than your money? It's hard. I get it. Not easy. But the things that are difficult are generally the right things to be working on. So if I'm striking a chord with you right now, you're listening to this wherever you are, and you're feeling like, oh my God, the rabbi's really bothering me, let's fast forward this part, let's get to the next part. Don't. That's a mistake. That's the devil in you, or whatever we want to call that thing, trying to get you to forget about the most important part of who you are. The most important part of who you are is your power to choose. Choice comes with this idea of dimyon, of imagination and dreaming to be a better you. So there's the ideal, the mitziyut that you're in right now, who you are. This is where I am. This is my mitziyut. This is my reality. And then there's the ideal you. What does the ideal you look like? When they wake up in the morning, when they say hello to people, what does that person look like? What is that person doing every single day? What does that dreamy version of you actually look like? Write it out. And then the last part of that, the process. What are you doing to become that person? More caring, kind, loving, giving, understanding, patient, sophisticated, intellectual, truth-seeking person. What does that person look like? What do we got to do to get them there? How do we start? Based on who you are right now, what do I got to do to help you get to become that person? That's all I want. That's it. Whether you become that person is irrelevant. The process is what matters most. Rosh Hashanah is about the process. Do you have a process? Have you prepared? Have you thought about it? We spend all this time, salach lanu, chatanu. We do all of that really to remind ourselves that that's not me. I can be more. The conception of the world happens on Rosh Hashanah. God conceives the world. It's created. Here it is. The way in which you're able to go ahead and create yourselves is by using your thoughts, your imagination. This is why it's called Rosh Hashanah. Not Reshit Hashanah. Not Hatchalat Hashanah. It's specifically called Rosh Hashanah to remind you that the only way to actualize, to activate the power of Rosh Hashanah is with your mind. That's it. There is no other way to do it. It has to do with your mind. That's it. There's no other way. That's what it is. Everything we do is about the mind. The Seudah is about getting you to think. You're in control. Your choice. You can do it. Okay? So you have three processes. The real, the idea, and the process. How are you starting it? So how do you start any process? Okay? This is based on Rabbi Shlomo Wolbe. He's one of my favorite authors. He writes as follows. Look around. Look at the physical world around you. Right? What you find is made up of giant clumps of matter. But from particles so tiny the eyes can't even perceive them, so too our own bodies are made up of cells that can only be seen under a microscope that magnifies them by 100,000 times. The same is true for spiritual process of building a person. Man is comprised of actions that we trample underfoot, whether we use these actions at our benefit or our detriment. This awareness should affect a revolution in our way of thinking, for what is big is made of small. The tallest mountains on planet Earth, Everest, is made up of small grains of sand. Stars, okay, these giant balls of energy are made up of small little molecules of hydrogen and helium. That's all it is. That's what a star is, a big ball of gas. That's what it is. But it's made of small little things. A person who wants to fix the world usually thinks of an all-embracing ideology for an international organization, for world peace or justice. Similarly, a person who wants to fix himself tends to think of grand actions of kindness and holiness. But small actions, he says, that don't weigh on a person at all, how can one's perfection sprout for that? However, the truth is just the opposite. Specifically through the small actions is a person built. You are who you are because of all the small choices you made, leading you up to where you are right now. Stop thinking of all the big things. I'm not scaring you with the big things tomorrow. If you walk away and transform yourself into something different tomorrow, you're going to fail. Small, consistent, little actions is what's going to help you achieve your ideal, your goal, the best you possible. We can take a metaphor for medicine as proof. I love this metaphor. The amount of medicine is one dosage of medication is tiny, perhaps a milligram. If the medicine container contained a larger quantity of active ingredient, it could hurt a person rather than heal him, perhaps even prove to be lethal. Meaning, if you're given an antibiotic and the doctor says take 1 milligram for 10 days, that means you're getting 10 milligrams. Why can't you just take 10 all at once? Just get it over with. The way to heal the body is through small dosages, consistent over time. Right? The same is true with our own avodah, with ourselves. Small, you see it in our kids, by the way. You want to go ahead and see your kid, you see something, but you want to knock it out of them, doesn't work. Small, consistent modifications over long periods of time is how we grow and how we change. This lesson is potent enough in and of itself. But there is another large aspect of small actions. They don't awaken the voice of rebellion in us. When a person accepts upon himself a big change that weighs on him as the days pass, he will feel the desire to rebel become more and more powerful in him. However, a small action that is not heavy from him at all doesn't pack enough punch to awaken his rejection to it. It flies, I notice, like the spy plane under the enemy's radar. So what's he saying there at the end? Right? Does that mean that if I want to do something good, there's going to be some outside force that's going to push me in the other direction? And the answer is yeah. Anytime any one of us wants to do something positive, you're inspired, there needs to be a counterweight pulling in the opposite direction. Who knows why? Anyone? Why is that true? First of all, does everyone agree that sometimes we find ourselves wanting to do something, there's this counterweight pulling me? Why is that there? Why is a counterweight there? I want to do good, but why is it so hard? Why can't I just do good?
It's a sacrifice.
Yes, but why is that?
Why
Excellent. It's about balance. Because the most important feature of being a human is that free will needs to be present. If you walked into a class and you heard this amazing speech given by some fascinating, erudite, articulate rabbi, and you're blown away, now you know it's true. Could it be that easy to walk out and just become a good person? No. There has to be an element of doubt. Oh, he's over-exaggerating. He doesn't realize how hard it is. We come up with all kinds of things. Why does the mind operate that way? And it operates that way for one simple truth. Because God wants you to have what we call bechira, free will. You need to have the ability to choose after this. It's too easy. Rabbi, it's all on paper. It's so clear. It's right there. You gave me 3 steps. I should be able to do it, right? Wrong. When you are familiar with the truth, it becomes more difficult to do it. That's how I know it's the right thing to do. The challenge is what makes us great. No pressure, no diamond. No hard work, no meaning. You want Rosh Hashanah to be meaningful. Where is your avodah? Where is your work? What are you putting into it? You want to just show up at Knesset? Show up. Maybe you'll be inspired a little bit. But I'm telling you, the difference between people that come into Rosh Hashanah and walk out with a complete change of being in the process of actually growing in this most spiritual day has to do with the people that ask the most important questions for themselves. Who do you want to be and where are you going? What are you doing to become that person? The Yetzer Hara, we're calling him the devil for comedic reasons, because it's fun, right? Is here to destroy you. Not because he wants bad from you, because he understands that force of destruction, when you overcome it, makes you amazing. That's how you become a Or Legoyim. That's what it means to be a Mamlechet Kohanim. The priests have to work through a process of becoming priestly. It's not enough to be born a Kohen. You have to work, the avodah it's called, the work of a Kohen. To be great requires effort. When Adam was born, the Midrash tells us that he was a luminous being. His skin was transparent. You could not see through him because he was emanating light. He was perfection, excellence, great. He could see from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Everything was super clear. There was no choice of bad. He only had one thing to do. Don't eat from this tree and eat from that tree. And he made a gambit. He had a bet. He got wrong. If I'm able to internalize this negative force and overcome it, I'll be greater. If I bring in this other consciousness, this negative consciousness, the Eitz Hadat Tov Ra, not sure, this uncertainty between good and evil, which is what we're always struggling with, and I overcome it, I'll be great. Now, was he right? Yes. He was 100% right. But is that something that you and I want to be struggling with? No. I don't want to be struggling with it. Judaism is an attempt to help give us a guide, direction, into clarifying what it means to be the best version of ourselves. To be excellent in everything that we do in life. It's not interested in taking anything away from you. It's a mistake that we allow the outside world to tell us. It wants you to have everything. Have fun, go on vacation, travel, eat. Just make sure it's kosher, right? You have to do your part. Do your part. Do your part. But it's all there for you. And today there's no excuse anymore. There's no excuse. Rosh Hashanah is 5 days away. Okay? I have over here 28 questions for you to think about before Rosh Hashanah. There's too many for you? Okay, fine. Skip that list. Go to the last page. Okay? I gave you 5 meditations for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Okay? Look at number 1. What will make my life meaningful this year? What I hope to accomplish in life is, the kind of person I want to become is, the mistakes I have made that have kept me from becoming a person include ... The bad habits these bad habits have kept me from becoming a person are, what are they? Circle one. Something. They just do something. Like I can't make it easier for you guys. Right? I'm just telling you that this is you want to understand how to overcome the most negative force in the universe. It requires Herculean efforts on your part. And that effort is fueled by one thing and one thing alone. You know what it's called? Belief. The belief that I can be more than what I am right now. And if you don't believe that, I can't help you. No one can help you. You're stuck. You're stuck. But Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are a reminder that things change, that you're forgiven. Forget the past. Forget what was. Are you willing to dream again? Don't allow the monotony of time and life to make us hard and stubborn. Children believe anything is possible. They're always dreaming. There's something beautiful and innocent about that. And as we get older, we stop it. That is slow death. To be human means to be able to choose to be whatever you want to be. And I believe it's possible. I know it's possible, but you need to believe it. Don't allow that negative force to give you a life of superficiality, of counterfeit pleasures. Don't settle, ever, because it's easy. It's too complicated. I don't want to try. A young girl called me yesterday and says to me, Rabbi, I don't want to go to synagogue Rosh Hashanah. I said this last night. It broke my heart. I can't do the same tefillot every year with no results. Nothing's changing for me, Rabbi. How could I go to synagogue? I don't want to go to synagogue and see all my friends with their kids. I don't want to face my family. I don't want to deal with it. I'm alone. Why can't I just be alone and just sit home and watch TV on Rosh Hashanah? This girl went to Beit Yaakov. She went to a religious school. You know. What's that? I'm working. It's not easy. God does it all day. I'm just saying we're all trying to do what we can do for everybody. But I hear that pain, and it pains me to hear it. Because she's giving into a negative interpretation of her reality. Yeah, and there's so much more to her. There's so much more. And it pains me. I don't want. I don't know how to say. You can't force him to do something. But I'm telling you that Rosh Hashanah is a day of hope. It's a day of renewal. It's a time of forgiveness. To let go of our pasts, to create space for us to forge a new future for ourselves. Don't give into the pain and the suffering, the negative influences of your mind. Forget about that. Forget the denial for a moment and dream again. And then put some effort, small actions, into thinking about becoming a bigger, greater human being. And I promise you will have a different year next year. Different year. You'll come back next year, Rosh Hashanah, you'll say, Rabbi, thank you so much. I took the class. I spent 5 minutes every day doing the avodah. It was really annoying, but I did it. And thank you because I see how it changed my life. That's how I started my journey. It was small little things. Nothing big. It took me a long time to put a kippah on my head in a way that was meaningful. A long time. Lots of small things. A lot of reading, a lot of learning, a lot of asking questions, a lot of that stuff. And I'm still doing it. It never ends. May you each be blessed with the recognition that you are God's children. And He loves you so deeply. He's going to give you, Bezrat Hashem, another year of chaim, of success, of hatzlacha, of briut, of everything you need to accomplish your unique task. Use it and make Him proud. And what you'll find is that you will be living a life of deeper, more meaningful happiness you could possibly imagine. Don't give in to the negative thoughts. Remember, you can choose. You can be something bigger and greater. Shana Tova, Mituka, Tisku, Lashanim Rabot, V'Neimot. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.